When I first entered my 20s, I thought I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew I wanted a wife in my future, some kids maybe. It all seemed simple back then. But now, as I'm about to leave my 20s, it feels complicated in a way I don't always know how to talk about. Dating apps, social media, and the way we treat relationships today have made it easier to keep your options open and harder to actually commit to a direction. And if I'm being honest, part of me has started losing faith in one of the milestones I've always assumed would define my life. And I think that's why Catherine is hitting me differently now, as I'm about to turn 30. I first played Catherine my freshman year of high school. Back then, I didn't really understand what the game was asking. I was idealistic. I just wanted Vincent to fix things with his girlfriend, and I wanted a clean, responsible ending. When I played the remake, Catherine Full Body, in my early 20s, I cared more about the new content than what the story was actually saying. But playing Catherine again now, I can't stop seeing my own conversations in it. Conversations I've had with myself and with the women I've dated over the last decade. The more I watch the protagonist Vincent avoid making a choice about his future, the more uncomfortable it becomes, because his relationships don't feel that different from mine. Maybe it's time to grow up. It doesn't take long for Catherine to show its hand. Catherine is a game that leads with a question about cheating. Cheating is a funny topic because morally I think most people can agree that it's wrong. But with age I've become a bit more understanding of cheating. I still don't condone it, but I understand it. To me, cheating is a sign that a need isn't being met by a significant other. It isn't always sexual though, and I think when you're in that headspace, it's easy to see it as a one and done fling, just one moment to steady yourself. But between you and me, I see cheating as an outlet. Some people cheat for control in a life that's spiraling away from them. I'd even argue you can cheat without another person entirely. Would you say it's cheating to block out your partner emotionally and bottle everything in? Are you cheating them out of an opportunity to be there for you, physically or emotionally? Catherine wants to ask the player, at least in its opening hours, whether betrayal only counts when there's another person involved, whether it's physical. Quickly for clarification, because the names get confusing if you're just listening, when I say Catherine McBride, I'm talking about Vincent's girlfriend. And when I say Catherine, I'm talking about the other women, or I'm talking about the game. In the opening cutscene, Catherine McBride seems to be a stable part of Vincent's life. It's obvious she loves him, and she has this calm, collected energy to her. Vincent, on the other hand, comes across as neurotic and a little immature. Catherine McBride presses him with some hard questions, and he doesn't know how to react. She comes off as a nurturer, almost a motherly figure to Vincent. And when he avoids the tough conversation and takes a sip of some bitter coffee, she immediately sweetens it for him. And that moment says a lot about their dynamic. At this point in the story, Vincent mostly just looks like a bad guy. Catherine, talking about wanting to take the relationship to the next level and feeling left behind when she watches her friends build families, feels completely reasonable for someone their age. Vincent and Catherine McBride are in their 30s. The older you get, the harder it is to pretend you're not an adult anymore. And for me, as you approach your 30s, that's when you should be asking some really hard questions. But I get it. Having a partner who enables a life of complacency can quietly turn into an immobile life. Vincent freezing in the moments where life demands action from him reads to me like someone who's always had another person step in whenever a hard decision needed to be made. So when I bring it back to the cheating question the game opens with, I keep asking myself what hole exists in Vincent's life and in his relationship that he's trying to fill. And if Catherine McBride is trying to serve him some much needed bitter coffee with that conversation, is the other Catherine just Vincent's sweetener? So the game clearly wants to explore this story through the lens of cheating. In the early hours, the central question becomes, is cheating forgivable? But the question I kept coming back to instead was whether you can delay responsibility forever. Vincent spends most of his time talking through his problems with his friends at a bar, and at this point in the story, none of them really hold him accountable for cheating. In a lot of ways, they enable him. Erykah, the bar hostess, even says out loud what the early cutscenes are already showing us. She thinks Catherine McBride is perfect for a guy like Vincent. She's maternal, and Vincent is the kind of person who mostly lets life happen to him. But that's only one side of it. Catherine McBride might be perfect for Vincent, but is Vincent perfect for her? Cheating aside. These bar scenes used in the game uses the group to ask a lot of questions about masculinity. Every male presenting character in this space is running from something. Fear of commitment, stagnation in their career, relationships. Almost makes you wonder if the game is saying that cheating becomes understandable when you're under enough pressure as a man. But what stood out to me more is how the game frames adulthood itself. The everyday pressure of being a man, of being expected to improve, succeed, and move forward, feels heavy enough to collapse someone who doesn't yet have the emotional strength to carry it. Vincent is that person. Once you step back and really sit in this space, there's an almost comforting melancholy to it. The bar becomes a place where time pauses and everyone gets to drown out their daily struggles for a little while. When the nightmares begin, the game uses the downtime inside of them to keep asking questions. The which of these is more cheating question had me stumped. I think both forms are bad, and like most things, it depends. But both feel less important than what they allow Vincent to avoid. Catherine as a whole is an extremely gendered game, and it's also very critical of men. The "are all men stupid" question made me laugh, but it also made me stop and think about what it was really poking at. If the point is emotional immaturity and avoidance, then I can see what it's getting at. After the nightmare, the game moves into one of my favorite scenes, the conversation between Catherine McBride and Vincent about her potential pregnancy. If you've ever had a pregnancy scare, it's easy to recognize the anxiety on both sides. Catherine McBride is clearly worried about Vincent, both as a person and as a partner. Once kids are involved, you are tied to someone for life, even if you don't stay together. Vincent, of course, is cheating, so the situation probably feels even heavier to him, but it also connects directly to his fear of change. Catherine McBride's fears matter just as much, even though they're different. In that scene, her worry isn't really about the change itself, it's about whether she's going to be alone in it. No matter what, a kid changes everything. That conversation continues later back at the bar, with Johnny dropping one of my favorite lines in the game. It's about what happens now. You got the news. Your partner might be expecting. Now is the moment. What you do next is what matters. This is also the point where I really started to care about this cast. Even if Vincent's friends don't always give him good advice, and even if they never truly hold him accountable, they stay with him through whatever choice he makes. So the question the game keeps circling back to for me is whether he's finally going to stop running. While playing Catherine, I found myself really enjoying the little moments. I loved being able to text Catherine McBride every night, and honestly, I wish we saw her more often, even though I understand why we don't. I also responded to Catherine's texts every night, and I can admit that alone would count as cheating for some people. Look, a better man than me wouldn't respond to Catherine at all, and this was the moment I really started to see myself in Vincent. A better man would acknowledge that he messed up once and shouldn't keep talking to her. But if I'm being honest, that's not the man I am. There's a part of me that would want to see how far I could take it without getting caught. It's wrong, but it's honest. The thing about lust is that it's convenient. It doesn't require anything from Vincent, so it makes sense for him to cheat in this moment in his life. Having a woman on the side puts control back in Vincent's hands. He doesn't have to worry about being a husband or providing a future for his partner and children. There are no real expectations placed on him. The other Catherine embodies this convenience perfectly. She's young, she's attractive, and she only wants the easy parts of Vincent. That's perfect for a man who only wants to do the easy thing. Catherine never makes Vincent look towards the future, she only wants him to look at her. Personally, I would love to have a woman like Catherine McBride in my life. But like Vincent, I have to ask myself, if I want someone like Catherine McBride, am I ready to be the man a person like her would actually need? Could I give up my vices? Catherine McBride talks to Vincent about how much money he spends on new tech and drinking. Would I be ready to give up my current lifestyle to be a better man for my pregnant partner? To be fair, I'm a flawed human, and under the right circumstances, a woman like Catherine could still come in and mess things up, even if I were lucky enough to find someone like Catherine McBride. Next set of nightmares also showed me that the platform safe zones between levels function a lot like the bar. The other sheep unload emotionally when you talk to them, but they don't really have the urge or drive to fix anything, just like the bar. Both of these spaces exist, so nobody has to actually change yet. The next major story cutscene is phenomenal. The entire time I was on the edge of my seat wondering if this was finally the moment the powder keg would explode. I've seen this scene twice before, and it still carries the same tension for me. But Once again, Vincent escapes accountability, and it immediately brings me back to Johnny's line, "What happens now, Vincent?" This part of the game also gives you one of the strongest moments from Vincent's supporting cast. The text you receive from Orlando is the first time he feels genuinely sincere to me. He usually treats Vincent's cheating with the careless so what attitude, but here he finally admits that Catherine McBride is the best thing that's ever happened to him, so that it might be time for Vincent to accept married life. Johnny stands out to me the most out of all of Vincent's friends. It's hard not to notice that he's in love with Catherine McBride, but out of loyalty to Vincent, he stays quiet and continues to support him. In Catherine Full Body, there's a scene where Johnny punches Vincent after he chooses to pursue Ren. But in Catherine Classic, I want to focus on a moment where Johnny starts ruminating on his past. I think being confronted with death forces him to think about his own life and his own time. He talks about how chaotic things were when he was younger, but also how alive he felt. To me, Johnny is the most relatable character in the game, outside of Vincent. I've had this same exact conversation with myself. It's coming up on a year that I lost a close friend to cancer. In that loss, I've thought about the lives I used to live and the life that I'm currently living. In regards to my life, I like to believe things worked out for the best and that I'm a better man today. But I still agree with Johnny. I felt more alive at 19 than I do at 29. The bar is full of moments like this. One of the regulars, Archie, starts a conversation about being a good person and asks whether you can stay faithful to your partner if a hypothetically perfect person came onto you. I answered honestly, I don't know if I could. I mean, it's easy to say that loyalty to your partner would always trump any lust you might feel, but if you were to leave a partner who treats you decently for someone who feels perfect for you, is that really a bad thing? These questions carry directly into the nightmares that night. When you speak to the Regent Sheep, he explains that the nightmare is tied to the waking world, but it goes so much deeper than just the women in these men's life. The rumors frame the curse as a witch's doing, or as some kind of woman's wrath, but what's really happening here clearly isn't limited to the cheating or to romance at all. What this night really shows is how everyone around Vincent is being forced to confront time, loss, and the choices they've avoided for years. And Vincent still hasn't answered the question, what happens now? The next major story cutscene doesn't really land for me. Vincent is confronted by a man named Steve who claims that Catherine is his girlfriend. Vincent assumes he means Catherine and not Catherine McBride, and when he asks her about it, she says she doesn't know him. Whether you believe her or not isn't really my issue. By this point in the game, it's obvious something strange is going on with Catherine. What bothers me is that Vincent even entertains the idea that Steve might be talking about Catherine McBride. That completely goes against everything we know about her character. Even Vincent's friends immediately say there's no way Catherine McBride is cheating. Erykah calling Vincent a loser in this scene hits extra hard because he is, and this is the moment where it really settled in for me. Vincent isn't just being unfair, he's immature and he completely lacks self-awareness. Of course he's willing to believe that something might be wrong with Catherine instead of something being wrong with himself. It's especially unfair of him to be torn up over the idea that Catherine McBride might be cheating at all, when he's been cheating on her for days and failing to meet her needs as a partner. He's being selfish. Erykah is also the only character who consistently refuses to emotionally cushion Vincent. She tells him uncomfortable truths instead of protecting his feelings, and she's probably the best friend he has in this situation, even though he clearly doesn't see it. One of his worst moments comes when he all but implies that Erykah isn't a real woman. Catherine constantly flips back and forth between treating Erykah, a trans woman, with respect and undercutting her with remarks about her identity. But L.E.S has a track record of handling these things poorly. Day 5 is noticeably more depressing than what came before it, and that feels intentional. Earlier in the game, the conversations at the bar were awkward, jokey, and maybe on the side of lighthearted. Now that the nightmares have fully set in, the tone shifts to regret, exhaustion, and the feeling that you might be trapped in a life you've created. That tension carries straight into Day 6 when Vincent interrogates Catherine McBride about Steve, and this entire scene makes me cringe so hard. Vincent didn't have nearly this much energy for Catherine. When Catherine denied knowing Steve, he drops it quickly, but when his longtime girlfriend says she doesn't know him, he keeps pressing her. This isn't how trust works, and it's become clear why. Vincent is trying to protect the feeling Catherine gives him. Catherine McBride represents a future he's afraid to face. Even if Vincent genuinely wants to stop cheating, he's still deeply unsure about what that future looks like and what it would require from him. This is another great cutscene in a game full of great cutscenes. I love Catherine McBride's mannerisms here, the tapping on the table when she gets impatient, the way her frustration shows through Vincent's coyness and deflection. She genuinely wants to understand what's happening and make things work. Vincent keeps getting in the way of that. The tension finally eases a little during the nightmare section when the sheep begins to confide in one another in the safe zone. They've accepted what's chasing them, and most of them talk about wanting to live differently once they make it out. Everyone except Steve, the tie-wearing sheep. The tie-wearing sheep and Steve are the same person, and he's obsessed with his version of Catherine. And at this point of the story, he becomes a really important foil for Vincent. Steve gave up everything that could have given him stability for short-term pleasure. He's what happens when lust replaces stability. Catherine's first half is about asking questions, and its second half is about finding answers. And this is the moment where everything finally comes to a head. Vincent's cheating is exposed, and I love the way Catherine McBride handles it. She's fierce and she takes control of the conversation. Even when her stoic mask slips and Catherine starts pressing her buttons, she stays emotionally present. She isn't afraid of the conflict. This scene has some of the best voice acting in an Atlas game, in my opinion. Michelle Ruff and Laura Bailey absolutely killed it as their respective Catherines. The entire time I was watching this cutscene, I was screaming at my screen for Vincent to say something. Anything. But that silence is the point. Vincent is still letting the women in his life move his story for him. Everything he does in this scene is fully on brand, right down to his weak, apologetic response at the end. This confrontation leads directly into my favorite part of the game, the cathedral. I haven't talked much about the other half of Catherine's gameplay yet, the climbing block puzzles, but here's a moment where they finally mesh perfectly with the narrative. These sections feel like a gamification of life itself, working towards something, climbing towards something. Freedom, financial stability, social climbing, even working towards a relationship. In this section, the climbing is recontextualized because you're doing it with your girlfriend by your side. The game finally lands on its real point. Don't try to find someone to climb your mountain for you. Find someone who can climb your mountain with you. The climbing only gets harder as the game goes on, just like real life, and Catherine is finally standing firmly behind what it's been building towards the entire time. Catherine McBride is now in Vincent's world, and she needs Vincent to lead. This is Vincent's breakthrough moment. It's time for him to step up for his partner. The cathedral itself is a little wonky from the gameplay perspective. Sometimes it's frustrating, and sometimes it even feels awkward, but that's what makes it so great. Vincent has been trapped in these nightmares for a week, and now the person he actually loves is there with him. The stakes feel real, and even though it's still a nightmare, it's life or death. And honestly, real life isn't that different. But right after Vincent finally understands what he has to do, the nightmare ends and we're dropped back into reality. Catherine McBride leaves him, and it's hard to watch. Just when you think everything has finally been said and they can move on, the game reminds you that Vincent still isn't ready. Catherine leaves in a controlled way that feels completely in line with who she is. Vincent, on the other hand, is still speaking from a place of possession and fear. He says he needs Catherine, and that might be one of the only times he's being fully honest with himself in the entire game. But the sad part is, Catherine McBride doesn't need Vincent. She's stable. She's secure. She isn't looking for anyone to complete or anchor her in a way that Vincent is. And that, more than the cheating, is the real hole in their relationship. I understand thinking that the person you love is supposed to be the center of your universe, but you still need a sense of self that exists outside of them, and Vincent never really had that. Unfortunately, as much as I loved this playthrough of Catherine up to this point, the story starts to lose me at the very end. The reveal of the true antagonist and the whole speech about population decline and women not having babies because men won't commit feels so shallow. The game suddenly pivots away from a deeply personal story about fear, responsibility, and emotional avoidance, and then turns it into a blunt social allegory for population decline. It just feels so phoned in and sloppy. Also, on top of that, I didn't like the, oh, I didn't actually cheat, I just thought I did sort of ending that they went with. Soft retconning the cheating weakens everything the story worked so hard to build. Whether Vincent physically cheated or not was never the point. The point was that he betrayed his partner emotionally. That said, I'm still happy with the choices I made. I'm happy that Vincent and Catherine McBride were able to find their way back to each other and plan their wedding. I don't think I got the best possible ending, but that feels fitting. No one really gets the best possible ending in a relationship. Some of us are just lucky enough to explore the rest of our lives with partners who love us.